So good afternoon. This is Just Thinking with Patriot News Network. Today is January the 12th, 2023, and we did make it through 2022. I wasn't sure that we were going to get out of that one. I think 2023 is going to be extremely interesting. Today, I have injected disease from TikTok. This is Riley. A lot of you have seen her stuff. She has great information, does a lot of amazing research, pulls up a lot of stuff that I never even knew existed. So I'm always super excited to listen to anything that you have up. And then I always am trying to find the data, the books that you come up with, I never even knew existed. So I appreciate, and I know a lot of others appreciate, all of the hard work that you put in to dig up this data wherever it is that you may find it. So I wanted to talk today a little bit about, obviously about these injections that we at first seemingly we're going to all have to take, and then a lot of us started to find some holes with this stuff, and we were like, this doesn't really make sense for me. So can you tell me a little bit about, for you personally, like what kind of set off the alarm bells for you when this whole thing started to roll out?
Okay. Well, when this all started, I was just sitting back, just watching everyone lose their collective minds. And that was probably the scariest part about this whole thing, is that the amount of compliance and brainwashing. I would literally watch videos of people washing their groceries, just getting back from the grocery store and having full TikTok tutorials on how to wipe down their groceries. There's a lot to unpack here. That's a great question, but there's a lot here to unpack. What tipped me off? It was more of a gut feeling of, oh shit, for me. Just, oh my gosh, here we go. Red team go. Red, it's just, I was like, okay, they're doing it. They're doing it, right? So that was me. My gut feeling. I always listen to my gut, and when I do, usually I find what I'm looking for when I listen to my gut.
Let me ask you this. Have you always been skeptical of the medical industry? And I won't just say the jibby, right? I'll just say in general. I've spent, for me personally, many weeks on end in hospitals with family members. And what became alarming to me, I remember when my aunt was in the hospital, my uncle, 2 different times, and they were pretty serious medical issues. And I'm kind of like you. Once I am stuck in a situation, well, then I start researching it. I want to know what am I dealing with? What am I looking at? And then what became very alarming to me, and then my father just went through his second amputation on the same leg, and a lot of times I'm sitting in the hospital room and I'm telling the nurse like what they're supposed to be doing. Like I'm like, hey, the medicine's supposed to be now, or I'll walk in and he was supposed to have medicine 38 minutes ago, and they're like, oh, okay, I'll go get it. I'm like, what is the problem with you giving it to him on time? Like, I don't understand this. You guys write the time on the board, you put it in a computer, and then 38 minutes after it's due, I'm telling you, why haven't you given this medicine? And then, and then it was just a lot of things that I experienced in the medical industry that just really, I'm like, how do these people have degrees, or what's going on here? And then I kind of started putting 2 and 2 together. When Obama signed that deal into play where you can only sue for $250,000 max now, which really, you used to be able to sue for 10 million, 50 million, and that would break the bank. So they were a lot more careful about what they did. Now, I guess the insurance companies are like, all right, you got 4 or 5 chances for us to write a $250,000 check, and then we'll take your license or whatever. We won't insure you anymore, or what, I don't know. But so my question to you is, have you always been skeptical of the medical industry? How dependent have you ever been on them? Do you totally ignore them? What's your lifestyle like as far as that goes?
Okay. Well, in 2019, I started having a lot of issues. I had intense migraines. My bowels weren't working properly. I had a lot of flu-like symptoms. I had my heart tested. I had heart chest pains. I didn't know why. Nothing changed for me in my diet or anything like that. And I got my thyroid tested. They were all of these white coats were telling me there's nothing wrong with you, nothing wrong with you. So I was just in writhing pain one day, and I was really Googling, Google. And usually, when you're confronted with a problem that nobody gives you answers to, you're going to look yourself.
Right.
And then I stumbled upon electrosensitivity, which it matched all of my symptoms. And come to find out, they put a new cell phone tower right outside my apartment window when my symptoms started.
So this
When
is
I
the 5G, the new technology, so you can get to the internet faster. And I think what's really funny about that is when I had 4G and 3G, uh, I was okay with the speed. It really wasn't, it wasn't taking up too much of my time today to wait that extra 1.1 second that it's faster now, right? So, what do you believe about the 5G since the tower was right
well,
outside of your window?
just to finish the story, I ended up moving because I couldn't take these symptoms anymore. I had brain fog. I mean, you name it. I felt as though I was slowly dying. And
Mhm.
I ended up moving out to the country, which is where I am right now. And all of my symptoms went away.
Now,
All of it.
is this like overnight, like within a week or so,
Yeah,
like
it
just
took
everything?
it took like about a week around
Okay.
there for it all to just, alleviate, go away. But yeah, I haven't had any heart pain out here. I don't live near any small cells or large towers anymore. I even have an EMF tri-field meter
Hmm.
to measure if I'm going to be staying in an area or not, because it's a no-go. If it's above point 0.2 on my tri-field meter, no go. I'm not going there. So I will not be going back to the cities anymore as long as this is happening. And these these frequencies have the ability to unravel the double helix of your DNA. So then over time you get disease. And I think it's more of a cumulative effect, right?
Right.
So depends on how healthy are you, right? And then also on top of that, what's your diet, what's your lifestyle, maybe
So let me
what.
ask you this: back when that was going on, was your? I mean, I know you're into yoga and stuff now, and so was your lifestyle as healthy back then when you were next to this tower? Um, and then that was still the effect, even though you were eating healthy, working out, doing yoga. So were you? Did you have the same lifestyle then as you do now?
Yeah, nothing changed except
Okay.
for I was too exhausted to even do the regular things I would do, right?
Right.
I did lose appetite as well while I was there. I wouldn't want to
Uh,
eat. Um, just it was a bad place I was in my life living there. It was
so let
just
me
not
ask you this:
good.
what do you think about what I've started to see a new trend? Is the cell phone towers wrapped around the water tanks for cities. What
Yes,
in the hell is going on there? I mean, are they just like juicing the water? I mean, the water's
yes, they are.
poisonous anyway, but
I'm not going to
you know,
sugarcoat it. Yes, they are.
okay,
These frequencies have the ability to change the molecules of the water. Um, there's water has memory. If you don't know that, you should probably look into it. Um, it even can do, if it's near a spring, one of these towers is near a freshwater spring, it can still change the water. And I think it will be causing more disease, but most white coats will be like, oh, what? There's a connection? I don't know about that. Where's
mm.
Rockefeller to tell me what to do?
which definitely goes into what we're seeing play out You know, a lot of the people that are going into the hospital that have these jibby injuries, the jibby jab injuries, right? They're asking the doctors, you know, like, you know, is this in correlation from the jibby jab? No, 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 no. They're just totally denying it, right? They're not even considering it, which is ironic because, right, all these problems are just arising out of nowhere. All these, I had a friend of mine, her mom had beat cancer, became cancer free for 1.5 years. And of course, her doctor was like, you got to get the jimmy jab because you're high risk, you've had cancer. And so she took his advice, right? He has the best interest at heart for her. So she takes it, and literally 6 weeks, she had stage 4 in her throat, her stomach, and her her throat, her lower intestine, and one of her thyroids, right? So
Yeah.
and so I had went to the doctor with them, and I was like, hey, like, what do you think this is from? And he's like, well, you know, sometimes. And I said, stop, before you go there. How does she go from having one type of cancer, beat it for 1.5 years, and then within 6 weeks of that jab, she has 3 cancer spots pop up? And he just looks at me and he said, well, I don't have the answer to that. And I said, but I do. So why don't you, since I'm not in the medical field? He literally looked at me and said, I can't answer that. And then just walked out of the room. So
yeah, because if they open their mouths, right, and try to save people these horrible fates, they're
they
going to
lose
lose
their
their
career.
job. They're going to lose their money.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they care about. They care about money. They don't care about people.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that is we're starting to see, like in California, right? So they passed that bill that states if the doctor or nurse or any medical professional does not basically regurgitate the California Medical Board information, right? So if they don't repeat exactly what they say, then they're going to take their license away in California, right?
Right.
So how does the general public look at something like that and not just totally flip out?
Well, I think it's because they've been under such a wonderful veil of programming that they still believe that what the television and these experts are telling them, they believe it. No, there's no if, ands, or buts about it. It's 100%. So they really truly believe that anyone with a counter opinion is here to hurt you.
It's so I just it's very hard to be awakened to this stuff because it's like you just want to jump out of your skin and just shake somebody's to death because you're like, why can you not see this? And I think what was really interesting was we had this Damar Hamlin on Monday Night Football, right? Falls out. It takes a hit that I would consider. I played football my entire life. I've watched it my entire life. And I would call that a 8th grade hit. It wasn't anything big. It wasn't this blindsided, waylaid hit. So I see the hit. I saw him fall down, and I'm like, oh yeah, I know what that is. Instantly, I knew what it is, right? And I was like, he just had a heart attack. And a friend of mine was like, no, dude, he probably just got the air knocked out of him or something, And then within 2 minutes, they're like, he's in cardiac arrest. And he's like, how the hell did you know that? I'm like, how the hell did you not? Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm watching this, and what's amazing to me is you have however many millions of people watching this. And what really grabbed my attention about that is not one single sportscaster question the why. They were all like, oh, I can't believe this happened. This is so sad, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like screaming at the TV. I'm like, ask why it's happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big club and we ain't in it.
Right. And I think what was also really interesting about that was I forget the guy's name, but there's two guys, a white guy, a black guy, and a lady that were doing the sportscasting. The black guy, I cannot remember his name, but you could just see the. I don't know. It was like you could just see the distress. You could just see the like it was a picture painted on his face. Like he just knew what was going on and he couldn't say a word about it. And he was just so distraught looking at him because I know he knows, right? I know he knows. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, come on, buddy, just say it. Just say it. I know you want to say it, right? But it goes back to what you said. It's about their money, right? And he knew if he opened his mouth and said it, he would never be a sportscaster again, period. Just like these doctors, if they open their mouth, they're not going to be a doctor or a nurse again, right? So that becomes a very hard thing for me to digest because now you're not the first responders, the doctors, let me give you hugs. Now you become, to me, almost, I'll probably get taken down for this, but public enemy number one, right? Because you're not. I also learned this. There's the Geneva Hippocratic Oath, which is I will do no harm to my patient, right? They put the patient first. Do you know that less than 11% of medical professionals now take that oath of the 1948 Geneva?
You're correct. A lot of people think they all do it. They don't.
I heard one the other day, and it sounded more like a cult rant than it did a Hippocratic oath. And they were all doctors wearing their little white coats, and they were graduating. And I wish I would have saved it. I somehow, I do this a lot on TikTok. I'll see something and then I'll mess up and I'll scroll past it by accident or something, and then you can never find it again. But when I saw that, I'm listening to that, that's when I dug in. And that's when I found out less than 11% take the Geneva Hippocratic Oath.
Hold on. I'm sorry. Hold on just a second.
You're good.
Okay.
All right.
Sorry.
So I'm going to pull some papers up so we can talk about a few things. But the first thing I want to say is if the truth makes you uncomfortable, don't blame the truth. Blame the lie that made you comfortable. And I think that is something that, nowadays it's so frustrating to try to talk to people because you're just trying to give them the truth. You're not trying to harm them. You're trying to prevent them from being harmed. But man, will they lash out at you for saying the truth, right?
It's so true. And I remember coming out online on my Facebook, putting out documents, telling them, this is what's going on. And people would call me a Nazi because I wouldn't be for the vaccine, which this isn't even a vaccine according to the CDRH definition of what a vaccine is. This is a mechanical device that comes in the form of a molecular package. This is a form of technology that people are literally injecting into themselves.
Okay, so let's break that down because I know, and I know a lot of people, this is not their wheelhouse. They don't understand certain terminology. So let's break that statement down into a real basic form that non-medical or non-mechanical or non-engineer type minds would understand.
Break it down. Okay, so you know how there's LPNs in the ingredients list that is publicly accessible.
That's the lipo nanoparticles?
Lipid nanoparticles. Now, okay. What is nanotechnology? And if you don't know what that is, then simply type it in your search bar and look it up. It's hard doing all the work and then repeating it over and over for everyone. Some aren't going to get it. Yeah. They're just going to go along to get along. And I get that. More power to you. There are some people that want to learn what these types of technologies are. And some of the technologies I do videos on, I'll post it to TikTok or wherever on these platforms. And the video will be immediately taken down because they don't want people know. These technologies that I talk about are so motherfucking restricted that they don't want anyone knowing. They don't want you knowing about optogenetics, epigenetics, anything that has to do with what the conspiracy theorists are warning you about. There's a lot of truth to what comes out of their mouths. The more I look into these types of like dreads, if you've never looked into dreads, they've already mapped your brain.
Yep.
If you've heard of targeted individuals or Rosetta Stone brain, I mean, I'm just putting out some stuff for people to look at, but usually it just goes right over because they don't do the work to find the information themselves. So, I can't make people do it.
I
Usually
think,
something traumatic needs to happen to them for them to be
yeah,
like, "Oh my gosh, oops." Right.
I think what's really interesting is you're starting to see, I posted on one of my TikToks the other day about, there's this lady, and she has a 17-year-old and a smaller child. I can't remember the age, 4 or 5, maybe 6, something like that. And she's like, I'm going to say this, and this will probably get me kicked off, but I don't care. She's like, I took my son who got the jibby jab, and this is the second time we've been in the hospital.
That's
And the
right. I saw
doctors,
that.
right. And she's saying, like, I think that this has something to do with a jab, but the doctors are totally ignoring it, acting like that's not even a legitimate question. And she's like, I got 4. And my 17-year-old had a allergic reaction to the DTaP. And so I know that there can be reactions, and why I don't understand why they're ignoring me about this one. And she goes, but I really think it's from the jibby jab. And I think that kind of goes into what you're saying. Now she's experiencing something very close and personal that is setting off the alarm bells, right?
Right.
And I did it. So what I said was, I'm going to be a little harsh here. We were screaming from the rooftop not to stick this in your own body. But when they started talking about the kids, we really came unglued, because they had a 99.98% chance of survival anyway. So there was absolutely zero reason to give this to a child, right?
Right.
And
Right.
but you did it anyway, right? So
Yep.
again, it goes back to brainwashing, it goes back to fear porn, it goes back to all this stuff. When they had the death toll ticker on CNN up in the corner, and everybody was like looking every day, oh my God, look at the count. And then what happened was it started slowing down, or just, it wasn't, people started calculating it, and they're like, okay, it's still 98% chance you're going to survive. And then they flipped it to COVID cases, right? So that number was much more alarming. And then, of course, Project Veritas does the deal where they get the producer talking undercover. He gets busted undercover, and he's like, "Yeah, I mean, we were doing that to scare the crap out of people." And so, is it the fact they don't see the same thing that we see? And I do tell people that a lot too. What we also have to consider is the average, the way they think and the way we think are split down the middle on social media. And social media and Google and Facebook and all these, they know who thinks which way. And so that's why basically we feel like a lot of times we're just a sounding board off of each other, regurgitating the same crap on TikTok, because the people that are on the other side are not seeing it because of the algorithms, right?
It's not only the algorithms. They're literally trying to rewrite history as we've been trying to get the information out. That's why I've lost so many accounts. It's not only on TikTok. I've had, I don't know, 15 Facebook accounts by now. People, I put out the information, right? And because it's censored, people blame me for not telling them sooner. But if they only knew the things that we have been through in order to get this information out, and I'm not going to stop. There's
Yep.
nothing that's going to stop me or keep my mouth shut unless, hey, FBI, CIA, if you want to call me, pay me to keep my mouth shut. Give me a call, love you, right? So, there's nothing you can really do but just to keep trying to get the information out. Like, for example, Carrie Mullis was very
Mm-hmm.
clear even before this was all announced that Fauci's a fraud.
Yep.
He's a fraud. He did this the same thing for the AIDS epidemic. In Fauci coming out of his mouth back in the 80s, he said we have to get it in them. Like they need to inject the disease within you. Hence my name, right? Like it's pretty. And then all of the vaccination campaigns, I shouldn't even be saying these words. they've been doing the same thing. Like for cases, they'll, for example, smallpox and monkeypox, it's the same thing. They just use a brand new name that no one is looking for.
Mhm.
They switch it over. Or for polio, for example, they divided the cases into polio and polio-like cases.
Mm.
So then they can make it look like it's doing the job by splitting them into these other realms and these other cases, when really they're just creating more of a problem.
Right.
More people are getting sick.
That
But
way they can create more medicine and sell more of it, right?
right, it's a business.
So it's when you put all these things together, and then you find out like the people on that work for the NIH own stock in Pfizer and BioNTech and all this stuff. It's just like, I guess we're like, how do you not see it? And then you got people walking around like, I don't know what you're talking about. It doesn't make sense. And so I think it goes back to what you were saying a minute ago, is that there's a big majority of people, they don't want to know.
Right.
And, I've got a couple of people that I know, and I try to tell them, they're like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. I just don't want to hear it. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't want to hear it? I just don't want to know about that stuff. It's too
Well,
stressful.
if they knew about it, then they'd have to take personal responsibility. And a lot of people don't like taking responsibility for these things. They'd rather just go along to get along. But in the long run, it's just been hurting us as a collective the more we play into these stupid games, and the majority will win a stupid prize.
Well, I think the other side of that too is that fear is the number one human emotion, right? And I believe that it's fear that is holding a lot of people back, because once they dive into this, as we well know, there is no turning back. And I don't know about you, but the first 2 or 3 months that I dove into this was at the very, very, very beginning. When they shut the whole world economy down, I immediately was like, something is way wrong here. And I've had a couple of friends I was talking to, and they're like, and of course I was staying up 20 hours a day. I was digging around on the internet all day and night. I had put out a deal. So March, this hit in April. I put out for the first time ever that I use TikTok. I put out this deal, this kind of a hit piece on Fauci after I found out about the AIDS and stuff, and I just called him out for a criminal and all this stuff. And the actual deal ended up on, I think, a guy's named Charlie Ward's page and two other people's page. It ended up going over like 2 million, 2 million, whatever. And so because I knew, I was like, you cannot shut the world economy down. If you know anything about the economy and the distribution and the distribution channels and all this stuff, it is so delicate. And just a small interruption can cause a ripple effect that could cost millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in the system. And when you have that kind of intricate system and so many different countries' livelihoods and people eating and all this stuff depend on it, I was like, okay, if this thing is real, right? And so when they first came out with it, people are dropping dead in the street in China, and you're like, whoa, that dude just died. And then you got people running with white suits on and picking them up and carrying them off. So for the first 2 weeks, I was like, holy crap, like everybody's going to die. And then all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, something isn't right. Like people aren't dying quick enough everywhere else. And then so when I really dove into it, that's when I realized things were really off. And so the point of what I'm saying is, for about 3 months, I don't think I slept hardly at all. I don't really think I ate very well. And I really did get to a point where I had to unplug for about 4 days and go spend it outside in the wilderness, because I was overloaded with information. I was overloaded with anxiety. I was overloaded with concern, all this stuff, all these emotions going. So I think that's the other side of it too, is if people wake up, they're going to have to go through that unveiling process. And it's a MFer. I mean, it truly is very difficult, because you then understand that every single thing that you know is a bold-faced, flat-out lie. And it's really hard to digest that you've been lied to your whole. That's like, it's like being in a very high-level narcissistic relationship with your life, right?
Yeah, it's hard to come to terms with something like that because that is your reality, right?
Yes,
A lot of people,
yes.
this is their reality. They think that this medical system is here to help them, heal them, as cancers are going through the roof. And I remember telling people, if you shut down all these preventative cares back in 2020, I was saying this, there are going to be a lot of people with diseases and problems coming up. And they all called me a conspiracy theorist. I said, look, the Fed is printing all this money. We're going to have inflation. You guys like inflation? They're like, no, you're a conspiracy theorist. So then I just stopped. I was like, okay, you guys enjoy your inverted reality over here. I'm just going to watch from here.
And you know what's crazy about that is like, isn't that just common sense? If you're not going in for scans for your health, for cancer, for breast cancer checkups, for all, isn't it just common damn sense that you're going to end up with a bunch of people on the backside that have medical problems because they didn't get to the doctor early enough, right?
That's
So
right. But we don't live in a world of common sense. We live in a world of unicorns and butterflies and rainbow shit, and we all get to eat it together.
that's what I always say. We live in a unicorn world with rainbow farts. It's really interesting to, and then, like you were saying, printing the money and inflation's coming. Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. Like, no, that's called history.
That's how it works.
Yeah. So the thing is, when I saw this, right, and I'm screaming from the rooftop, my dad pulls me aside and he's like, son, I'm starting to get worried about you. And I said, why? He said, you look like crap. You haven't been sleeping. And, I looked in the mirror and I'm like, holy crap, he's right. I put on 15 pounds sitting around eating junk food, researching this stuff, just losing my mind, and I look in the mirror and I'm like, holy crap. Like, I put on 15 pounds. I got a double chin starting. I just, I hadn't gotten a haircut in like 2.5 months. And I used to cut my hair every 3 weeks. And I'm like, wow, I let myself go. But the information I was finding out was just flooding me with, this overwhelming emotion that I could not believe that everybody's lying to me, right? And then you start saying that, and then, like you just said, you get people that are like, oh my God, you're conspiracy theorists, blah, 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 and I'm like,
I was there too.
Yeah.
I was there too. I could not stop. I had to know it. And no matter how scary it was, no matter how much I didn't want to hear it, I wanted to know. I wanted to know, and I just didn't stop. It was, I think, maybe a full year. Oh, wow. I kept going. I didn't stop, just constantly trying to find the answers. And even if I found an answer to it, I'd be like, is that the answer?
That's not true. Let me see.
Right? I need to see all perspectives in order to come to a conclusion of my own discernment of what's happening. I need to see it from every angle before I can make my decision. All right.
Yeah, I think that's the big deal for me too, is I find an answer and I'd be like, but how do I know that one's true? Right.
Right.
And then you got to dig some more, and then you find kind of something else that leans another way, and you're like, I knew it. I knew that wasn't the right answer.
Right. That could be it. That could be it. Right.
But I think that's truly the reason we're at where we're at with all of this, is because a lot of people can't mentally handle that. And I know that like we just said, we struggle mentally to handle that, because it's very unbelievable that you literally can be lied to about everything, and then I started researching the shit I was eating at the computer while I start going down this rabbit hole about food, and I just start, everything in my kitchen, and I'm just blown away. Like, everything's cancer, right? Or disruption in your digestive tract, or, whatever. And then then I go to ewg.org and I look up the water database, and I'm like,
yeah, that's right. I did that too. When I started sharing that website, I was like, do you know how much arsenic is in my water?
I'm like, arsenic. Why the F would you be putting arsenic in water unless you're just trying to kill us? I mean, there is no logical explanation, period. And then you see these guys putting fluoride in water wearing spacesuits.
Hazmat suits. Oh, it's good for you. Let me put on this hazmat suit. We're going to dump this in your water and you guzzle that right down. You know, I was looking at a 32-ounce bottle of fluoride I got over here. I was thinking, why don't I just guzzle that down right now and go right back to sleep? I'm done at this point. These people will not. They won't even look into anything. They will look into how GMO over time can give you cancers.
Mm-hmm.
Like these shots that we're giving people causes so much inflammation in their systems, as well as the lymphatic area, which is the drainage part of your body to get these wastes out. It makes it so inflamed. That's why you'll see people with swollen lymph nodes under their armpits after getting it. And they'll be like, what's going on? Right. I'm just sitting over here like, it's so obvious to me what's happening. Please go get your booster. I'm to that point. Just go get your booster, please.
I did say that yesterday. I felt kind of bad. I was in a debate with somebody.
Yeah, I mean, I do too. But at this point, they like it. They like it. They like these diseases. They like the cancers. Yeah. They like being sick.
Well, I was telling him, I was trying to explain to him. I said, hey, 62%, I believe, or 67% of all major network hospitals, that they derive their money from cancer treatment, right? So they can't afford for the cancer industry to be, what's that say, controlled demolition. You always have, how many books do you have?
Too many. They talk about that in this book. Also cancer as an industry in this book.
Oh, I need to get that. You keep bringing that book up.
If you want everything that is, it's touched on everything in here. This one's a big red pill. If you want your family member to wake up, it is, if they still read books, this is the one you want to get them right here. This is a big red pill. Controlled Demolition of the American Empire by Jeff Berwick. And this other one is called Geoengineered Transhumanism by Alana Freeland. But this is one in a trilogy from Alana Freeland. She's excellent. She talks about everything you want to know. She has sources throughout the book. It's not a conspiracy. I mean, I'm so sorry to tell you, it's not.
Yeah.
Everything's backed by science, and follow the science, right? I'm following the science, and it's leading me to all the places I think are terrifying.
But you know, the crazy thing is about when people are like, follow the science, and then I turn around and I'm like, okay, what science?
Yeah, what science?
Then they're like, the science. And I'm like, no, you tell me what science it is that they're talking about. Like a deer in a headlight, right? They're like, and I'm like, so tell me what the damn science is that you're following and why you went and got that deal. And they have nothing to say. And then it becomes violent, right? Then it becomes, F you conspiracy theorist piece of, whatever.
Right. Attack your character instead of actually discussing the message. Yeah, that's usually the foothold they've usually have. But I just did a TikTok going over this year's flu injection. And it was taken down for authenticity and integrity when I'm reading from the flu vaccine insert. So if this is misinformation, then what science are they following?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's interesting. That's all I get hit for now is integrity and authenticity. That's the only violation I get now. It's never. And like you said, I try to put a receipt up with everything I talk about.
Right.
And I say, hey, this is, like you just said, this is the vaccine insert. Okay, so if you're reading from the vaccine insert and they're telling us to follow the science, which should be, in fact, the vaccine insert, then there shouldn't be,
from the manufacturer. Exactly.
Right, then there shouldn't be any problem. So when that gets taken down, doesn't that alarm the people? That should alarm the people.
It should alarm them, absolutely. But no, they have no idea what's happening. And go eugenics. Go transhumanism. Let's do this. Okay, yeah, right, so not FDA approved.
Yeah,
it's not. Right. I'm sorry, it's not. You can tell me it is all you want. It's not. Sorry about you.
All right, so I want to jump into some of these slides that you had sent me. Okay, so this is information to provide to vaccine recipients and caregivers. As a vaccine provider, you must communicate to the caregiver information consistent with the fact sheet for recipients and caregivers, and provide a copy or direct the caregiver to the website CVD Vaccine to obtain a fact sheet for recipients and caregivers prior to the individual receiving each dose of Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine or Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine bivalent. Is that how you say it?
Bivalent, yes.
Bivalent, okay. Including FDA has authorized the emergency use of the Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine and the Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine bivalent, whatever, which are not FDA approved. Now, how many of you that got the jib, how many of you were told that by the caregiver?
None of them. None of them. Absolutely zero.
And what insert are they talking about that give them? The blank one?
Yeah, I have a blank one. I actually did a video in 2021, where I go into my pharmacy. I think that's the one that went viral, and I am talking to my pharmacist about, can you go over how is it safe and effective? I have no, I had to walk him through it because I already knew the insert was blank. I have a few of them in my room, but it's like they don't know. They have no idea. This is the first time I've ever seen a vaccine insert that is blank. If that doesn't raise a red flag for anyone, I don't know what will.
Yeah, and what's really crazy, I did the same thing. I went into Walmart, asked them to see the box. The lady actually handed me the box that it came in, and I have pictures of that. And it has a QR code on it and all this stuff. And when I scanned it, it let me into the medical side of there, right? Not the public side, the medical side. I found a lot of really good information off of that as well. But
right.
Again, what's amazing is, so here's something they're telling you to go get. They're telling in their little sheet, right? And just so you know, we're not pulling this out of our arse, right? This is on the FDA.gov website, so the Food and Drug, right? So this is what you're supposed to be doing, right? Now, there's another deal right here that says, let me pull this back up on the screen so we can see it. Myocarditis and pericarditis have been reported following administration of the Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine and the Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine. So they're bivalent. So they're actually admitting right there that it's causing that.
Oh, but they say it's rare. It's super rare. Don't worry.
Yeah.
It's super rare.
And that's the other thing. I keep seeing the word rare, right?
Yeah.
Rare. Okay. So what constitutes as rare, and who determines that definition, and what is that definition?
Oh, that is a big question right there. Well, I would be more apt to believe them if I haven't had. I've posted videos on my Telegram about this, how people are monitoring the VAERS website, and they will make spreadsheets on their Excel, right? Microsoft Excel, keep all of them together and track all of these things. And you will see the CDC or some organization actively deleting these injuries off of VAERS. And this has been happening for a while, and people it just goes right over their head. Like, I can't believe anything anymore.
Well, I also want to say too, a lot of people, when you bring up the VAERS site, they're like, oh yeah, VAERS, blah, blah. And VAERS was actually created, if I'm not mistaken, it was created when Reagan signed a deal that allowed basically shielding the
liability
yeah. From the manufacturers, because quote unquote they were having to do this in the name of saving humanity, right?
In the name of science.
Yeah, in the name of science. And so this is basically prevents you from suing them if they create something that gives you a third nipple or a fourth eye or something. And so
13.1 says it has not been tested for mutagenic, carcinogenic. There's no testing for fertility implications. It's on the insert.
Yeah. So basically this was, to my understanding, that all adverse reactions by law in order to basically make that deal legitimate was that the vaccine companies must report all adverse reactions to VAERS. And then, of course, that way they could see, okay, if it's causing this problem or that problem, we got to pull it off the market. When you go to VAERS website, they tell you in their own words that it's between 1 to 10% is being reported.
And there was a Harvard study about how
Yes.
it's less than 1% of these injuries are actually reported. So you can do the math if people can still do math at this point. I'm not sure.
I don't know. Let me draw my box on my paper and see if I can figure this problem out. So the thing is, they're saying that there's been, I haven't looked at it in a while. Do you know what the unalive count is on there now?
Oh,
On
it's
VAERS?
I'd like to say hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, I want to say like it was
Thousands.
the last time I saw it, I think it was like 150,000, right?
Yeah.
So if you extrapolate that out of it could be as many as 1.5 million to 15 million, depending
Right. So
on
if you do the math, that's
yeah,
1%, and then you
yeah,
times it
yeah.
exactly. So just
And I think
imagine.
now we're starting to see a very rapid secession of unalive suddenly. You're starting to see that virtually every morning, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times, and that's just what you hear about. So again, you have to remember that they're not going to tell us every one. So if we're hearing about it every day now, it's almost like they're trying to normalize it when they bring, oh, well, this second Las Vegas student dies in a week, but good thing was he was an organ donor, so he's going to give other people second chances. Okay, next happening is blah blah blah, and you're like, what? Like, you just said that like he died for the greater good to give other people his organs? Like, they're trying to normalize it, right? Trying to normalize it. So
Yeah, they are normalizing it. It's the new normal. It was on the news, the new normal. This is the new normal, even though they don't know what's going on, right? They don't even know about the virus, but yep, it's a new normal. This is our new normal. Okay,
yeah,
people are just going to die suddenly, and don't question it. It's just that's how it is, and keep your mouth shut. We're going to take your
fall,
job away and bankrupt you if you open your mouth.
yeah,
Welcome to
fall in line.
America. Welcome.
All right, so this one is mandatory requirements for Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine and Pfizer bivalent administration under emergency use authorization, right? So it's mandatory. They have to tell you. Again, it's not approved. They did approve. What was the name of the one that they did approve?
Comirnaty, but that's not being
Yeah,
offered in the United States. I
right,
have a video on that as well, proving that what these people are getting, they have no idea what they're getting injected into themselves.
right.
It boggles my mind that people would ever trust anything like this.
Absolutely crazy. Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine and Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine bivalent are authorized, right, but not approved. That's where they're kind of tricking you, right?
And
Everything's word.
it's called word magic. A
Yeah,
lot of people don't have the insight in order to decipher this, or read it for that matter.
right. For use in individuals 6 months of age or older. Oh, that just makes my skin crawl when I hear that age come out. I don't want anybody to get this thing, but I dang sure don't want a child who has no ability to be any part of this decision be subject to this. But it's just, the good news is, I will say this, that they're saying that 13% is roughly what they're estimated at the kids that have been jibby jabbed. So with that being said, I am at least glad to hear, in a sense, that a lot of people, when it came to their kids, were like, I don't know about that one, right? So that is at least something positive out of that, right? The vaccination provider must communicate to the individual receiving the blah, 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 or the caregiver information consistent with the fact sheet for recipients and caregivers prior to the individual. So again, they don't, I think I read that twice. So they don't show it to us, right? They're not telling anybody. The vaccination provider is responsible for mandatory reporting to the vaccine adverse event reporting system, right? So why do you think it is they put the responsibility on the provider, the person given the shot?
I think it's well, that's the thing though. I think most physicians and pharmacists, they're not informing the public of these things, that it's unapproved. They're not informing them of the risks, really. I don't think they are. So how is this in any way true informed consent to those receiving it?
Hmm.
All of these pharmacists and doctors are saying they're approved. Absolutely, they are. How can they say that when this is the FDA fact sheet saying to you that they are not approved?
Well, I think it goes back to what you said earlier, right? It's about the money. They get paid.
Yeah, it is about the money.
Yeah. So the vaccine administration errors, whether or not associated with adverse events, serious adverse events, irrespective or attribution to vaccination. Cases of myocarditis. Isn't it interesting that they specifically point out these two
Well,
cases of
that's the thing.
myocarditis?
A, l- a lot of us have been out here saying for years that it's going to cause all of these issues, but we got so loud and we were very persistent about it that it started catching on. People started seeing the connections we were seeing, so they couldn't keep it quiet anymore.
Right.
They couldn't.
So that is why we do what we do, because if enough of us are loud enough, if enough of us make people aware of it, if enough of us scream at the top of our lungs, somehow they're going to have to figure out a way to squeeze it in there and then
Right.
try to put some lipstick on the pig and make it look good, right? But I just think it's interesting here that they specifically point out cases of myocarditis, pericarditis, cases of multi-system inflammatory syndrome in adults and children. So this goes back to what you had mentioned a little while ago about the inflammation. And
Yes.
I have learned that in my quest to become a medical doctor, that two of the biggest things that are causing ailments in us, and the number one thing is inflammation, right?
That's right.
Inflammation causes so many problems, and everything we do inflames us, right? Yeah, between
Pretty much.
the EMF stuff coming off of all the devices that we use, the constant radiation in our home, the foods that we eat, the waters that we drink, the sodas, all this crap that people put in their body, smoking cigarettes, vapors, all this stuff. Every single one of them causes inflammation, right? And so that leads to this problem, that problem, this problem. The other thing that I think that I have learned that I believe to be correct at this point is parasites.
Yes. I just got done with another cleanse I did for a parasite cleanse. Yeah, it's absolutely
I'm in the middle of mine, so I haven't had anything weird happen yet, but I'm waiting for it. I've seen some stuff on TikTok. I'm like, I don't know if I believe that or not, but I guess I'll find out soon enough.
Give it a try. You'll surprise yourself. Yeah, just don't look back in the toilet because you're probably going to see a few worms in there. Yeah, they create. I'm almost convinced that cancer is caused by parasites at this point.
That's exactly
that goes untreated. No one ever. That's why they do such a smear against ivermectin, right? Which is just a synthetic version of wormwood, which is a natural herb in order to detox these things out of your body. But I think that's why they don't want people doing it, because then you're going to be a healthier group of people if you do these things.
Well, and then I also, I believe that's the reason the FDA wants to get their grimy little hands on all of our supplements and our essential oils, and because these are not authorized. I really don't understand.
Yeah, the vaccine isn't really authorized either, but you're giving that to everybody, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's pretty wild how they.
It's inverted. It's hypocritical. I'm done with it. I'm done.
Isn't it amazing though? It's like they come up with this stuff, and you're like, you're basically just you're going against exactly what you stand for, right?
Precisely.
Okay, so let's look at this one here. Vaccination providers enrolled in the federal COVID-19 vaccination program must report all vaccine administration errors All serious advents, cases of myocarditis, cases of pericarditis, once again, they point that out, multisystem inflammatory syndrome, again, they point that out, in adults and children, and cases of COVID-19 that result in hospitalization or death following the administration of the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 or the BioNTech. So, mandatory requirements for Pfizer-BioNTech, blah, 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 administration under emergency use authorization for reporting requirements, right?
Yeah, it's mandatory for these providers to tell them this information, but they haven't said a word about it.
Well, and then not only that, what this is saying is that as a provider, as somebody that's given other people the jibby jab, if you have an adverse reaction, it says that you must report all. There's a key word right there. Report all vaccine administration errors. So that takes me back to the point of, doesn't that raise a big question in your mind? Sorry, I didn't even have it pulled up. So you can see right here, it says, vaccination providers enrolled in the federal COVID-19 vaccination program must report all vaccine administration errors. So we're sitting here looking at VAERS telling us that between 1 and 10% is being reported. We have Harvard do a study that tells us less than 1% is being reported. And then we sit here and we see that the FDA is saying you must report every single one of them. And we know for a fact that that's not being done.
Wait, doesn't it also say to report it if you get COVID after getting it?
Yes.
Yeah. So how many people haven't reported that reaction to getting it, right? It's just, it blows my mind.
And, it's kind of like, I know that, so the first time ever I got a flu shot, I was working for a company and they were like, oh, you have to get the flu shot because if you miss any days and we offered you the flu shot for free and you miss it for being sick, we're not going to give you your sick day pay, which I think was illegal, right? Yeah. But I was younger. I didn't know. And I was like, yeah, whatever. So I take this flu shot. Holy crap.
Worst flu of your life.
Well, first of all, like I've always, I've been blessed, very blessed for having a very strong immune system. I typically get sick about once every 3 to 5 years. And it's usually fairly, mild. I'm down for two or 3 days and I'm back up. So that's my experience of being sick my whole life, right? I've never had a headache. I've never had an earache. I've never had, so I've been fairly healthy. I take this flu shot. Holy crap. Like I felt like I had been run over by a semi. I couldn't even get out of bed to go to the bathroom. I literally at one point I elbow crawled to the toilet. Like I was like, I was having such a hard time comprehending how somebody could be this sick.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a friend of mine who's a nurse, and she's like, "Oh, don't ever take those."
Yeah.
I'm like, "What do you mean, don't ever take those?" And she's like, "Yeah, those things will give you the flu. If you don't get the flu and you take those, it will definitely every time it's going to do that to you." I'm like, "What the? Why are you telling me this as a nurse?" But then they'll push this shit in the, and it's again, it's always about. It's always
money.
About the money. It's
always we need about money. Give us your money.
Oh my gosh, it's just so insane that
it is.
It's crazy. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at this juicy little number here. Let me blow this up a little bit bigger. There we go. So myocarditis is all over from the vaccine, right? Myocarditis. So they have this specific section, myocarditis and pericarditis. Post-marketing safety data for the Pfizer are relevant to the vaccine and the bivalent. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time with that word, because these vaccines are manufactured using the same process. Post-marketing data with authorized or approved monovalent mRNA COVID-19 vaccines demonstrate increased risks of myocarditis and pericarditis, particularly within the first week following recipient of the second dose. So they even know what dose this is going to hit you on, right? Now, how do
and
know
you're not
this?
considered fully vaccinated until what, like 14 days after your your
Second
dose.
dose. Yep.
So then you're considered unvaccinated, and you're put in the unvaccinated category if you die or you get sick.
Which
So
is a
then the
way to
people,
what?
what?
Manipulate the data. That's a
That's
way to
right. That's all
manipulate the data.
that's all they've done. They've been doing this for hundreds of years. And because we're not bright enough to catch on to what they're doing, they're going to continue to do it.
Yeah, when I first heard about that, I didn't pay it too much attention for a split second, and then I was like, wait a minute, wait. What did they just say? And then I went back and I watched it, and they said if you haven't had your second dose and you die, so if you die from your first dose, then it's not counted as a vaccine injury because you didn't have your second one. And even the people that got the second one that unalived immediately or 2 days later or 3 days later, they were still considered unjabbed because it wasn't 14 days after. That is the only answer to that is manipulation of data, right?
That's right.
So within the first week following the recipient of the second dose of a second dose primary series or the first booster dose, third dose, with most booster doses likely administered at least 5 months after completing the primary vaccination, which we know now they're trying to get you in at 60 days. Isn't that right? 60 days?
Yeah, I think it's around that. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 months because they realize the how do you say that word? Inefficacy, whatever. So basically, yes, thank you.
Yes.
So that is dropped all the way down to like 12% after 60 days. Right. So this is observed risk in the highest in males 12 through 17 years of age. Although some cases required intensive care support, available data from the short-term follow-up suggests that most individuals have had resolution of symptoms with conservative management. So they're trying to soften that whole thing up with that one little sentence right there. Information is not yet available about potential long-term sequelae, whatever.
Yeah, it's basically saying about long-term effects.
Basically. Yeah, because we haven't had the long-term effects.
We don't have the data yet. This is an experiment. This is called eugenics or transhumanism. Welcome.
And I was trying to tell people, I'm like, what's going to happen the 5th year down the road? Well, I don't know.
Probably vaccine, autoimmunities, dependency enhancements, things that Fauci's been talking about since 2021. Even earlier, he's brought this up. He's like, yeah, it could be 10 or 15 years down the road from doing an experiment like this with vaccines, and then people could just all of a sudden die and drop dead. And I'm sitting over here like, no one else sees this? It's just so amazing. Disturbing.
They tell you, right?
Yeah, they do tell you.
So in April of 2021. So this isn't something that just got discovered 2 weeks ago, right?
No.
This is something that's been out there. This is why we keep screaming at the top of our lungs, and we're utterly amazed that you have not figured it out yet. It's because in April 2021, it says increased cases of myocarditis and pericarditis were reported in the United States after it's telling you. Like, how do you not see it when they're actually telling you, right?
Yeah.
This is very, very mind-boggling, right? So limitation of effectiveness. The Pfizer BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine and bivalent may not protect all vaccine recipients.
Yeah, and it might give you COVID. So what's the point of this?
That really should say will not protect all vaccine recipients, right?
Because they're all getting it. All the ones that get the vaccines end up getting COVID after. The majority of them do. So it just doesn't make sense to me.
Here's something I noticed earlier at the bottom of this. Adverse reactions in participants 6 through 23 months of age following administration of the vaccine include irritability, decreased appetite, tenderness in the injection site redness, and fever. And it's like, well, that's all vaccines, right? So that's pretty common in all. This is the site that this came from. It's called the Disclosure Hub. They've got a lot of really good information in here. So there's also stopworldcontrol.com that has a lot of great information. And there is another one I wanted to bring up, which is
Injected, expected.
Injected, expected, and
Right.
also global research.ca is another good site. So those are some good sites to really dive into if you don't know, or you want to get somebody that's on the fence that really doesn't know what's going on, to get them to dive into that stuff. And it's one thing I've found better to do in this whole kind of debacle that we're in is, at first, when I first started learning about this stuff, I would try to cram it down your throat. I was gonna take your head and look at this. That's how I was acting at first, and to say the least, people were.
They weren't having it, were they? I
No,
did the same thing, and now I kind of make fun of it or make a skit, or I'm like, oh, look at what I found, more terrifying information. Here you go.
I think that's a great way to do it. Is to kind of be a little less abrasive about it.
Yeah.
But the other thing I started doing that I have found to work, is I brought this up to you earlier, was I'll be at the gas station, waiting in line, and I'll just turn around to some random person and I'm like, do you know who the World Economic Forum is?
Yeah.
And they're like, no. And I'm like, you don't
Planting
know
seeds.
Yeah, I'm like, you don't know who the
You gotta
WEF
plant.
is? And they're like, no. And I'm like, oh my gosh, his name is Klaus Schwab. And by 2030, you're going to own nothing and you're going to be so happy about it. And they're
Well,
like, what do you
people
mean?
already they already own nothing.
Yeah.
Your car belongs to the state. Your house, you're a tenant of your house. You don't own
Yep.
your house.
Never, ever, ever.
And people are okay with it. So I'm like, oh, okay, we're gonna play this game. Let's do it.
Well, and then I even started thinking about it a little bit further. You have so you have what, Netflix? So you don't own the content, right? You pay to use the content.
Right.
Everything is subscription based now, right?
Yeah.
I even have this workout mirror thing, right, that you work out on, and it was really expensive. It's a really great piece of machinery, but if I don't pay that $49 a month, the freaking thing doesn't work.
That's right.
So all this money that I spent on it was for nothing, right? So virtually every aspect of our life is rented or borrowed or paid.
Correct.
So we don't really own anything at the current time. But I think they really want to take it a little bit further. Like,
yeah, they do.
They'll
push it as far as we let them go with it. So
we got 15-minute cities coming. They're already testing it in Oxfordshire, and Australia is already doing it. If you really want to know where we're going, all eyes on Australia, right? Those poor people are a little island. They have nowhere to go. They can't get off the damn thing. And, they're pretty much, they gave up their rights for guns. So they are pretty much stuck doing whatever they're told, or, they don't eat, or they don't, have a job, or whatever the case may be. But they're breaking that down into 15-minute cities. And basically what that means is you will not be able to travel outside of your 15-minute zone except for roughly 100 times a year. And then when you do travel outside of that zone, you will have to inform the government of where you're going, what you'll be driving, how long you will be gone. I don't know. I remember watching the Hunger Games with my kids a while back, and I remember watching that movie and I was like, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, we already have the FEMA districts, right? What district are you in? Like, it's, it's number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then that's your district, and then we're just gonna screw you. Welcome to America.
And I don't know. Is there times you think that? There's times I think like we can fight this, we can win this, and then there's other times I look at this and I'm like, man, we're too far gone.
I'm the same way. I'm this way. I'm like, oh, I have hope. Oh, it could possibly get better. And then I'm like, we're just so screwed. We're
so far behind,
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, for me, when 9/11 happened, like
inside job,
I knew that was like bull.
The Patriot Act has nothing to do with patriotism.
Yeah, the Patriot Act is all about invasion of our privacy in every aspect of our life and under the guise of national security. And if you ever hear the words national security, almost inevitably every single time, it is absolutely not good for us.
That or sustainable. If you hear sustainable, run.
That allows the government to hide information from us. As a public servant, as the government, we are supposed to know virtually everything that the government is doing. And as a private citizen, they are supposed to know virtually nothing about us. And the roles are exactly reversed. They know everything about us, and we don't know shit about what they do behind closed doors. And that is why I feel like we're in trouble. I did get this new book that I haven't read yet. It's Fifth Generation Warfare, which is by Michael Flynn and Boone Cutler, sergeant from the U.S. Army, and of course, Michael Flynn's a lieutenant general. So, Fifth Generation Warfare is basically the globalism, right? And what we haven't realized is that we've been at war for a very long time.
Yes.
Not just in the form of bombs going off and battlefields.
This is silent weapons for quiet wars.
It is.
This has to do with using computer programmers instead of a marksman, using bits of data instead of bullets. This has everything to do with your mind. So keep your temple clean here. You want to try to, at least.
So what is the answer to all of this?
It's just trying to inform those who want to be informed. If someone doesn't, they're like, they're just mean to you, whatever. They're like, no, you're a liar. Then move on to the next person, because I just don't got time for that. I don't have time for it anymore. And then something I wanted to end off on, because I got to get going pretty soon, is the legalization of lies. For example, for several decades, a law prevented the U.S. from pushing government-created programming to Americans. But on July 2nd, 2013, they decided that they no longer cared if that programming was directed towards Americans. The Smith-Mundt Modernization Act of 2012 lifted the ban on government-created programming and effectively nullified the old Smith-Mundt Act of 1948, which explicitly forbade information and psychological operations aimed at influencing U.S. public opinion. So if people want to talk about fake news, then they should be bringing that up, the Smith-Mundt Authorization Act of 2012. Thanks, Obama. So yeah, every time you put on your news source on the internet or on your television or whatever Black Mirror you're looking at for your broadcasting spell wizard astery, right? You're going to be seeing programming. They don't have to tell you the truth. They're there to program.
I think what's really interesting, if you look at it, it's tell, lie, vision. Tell a vision, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So they're telling you what to believe.
That's right.
And then you get your programming from your channel.
It's channeling. So a lot of Christians are like, "Oh no, we don't practice witchcraft. You watching television?"
Yeah. And then the thing is, once you become awake, right?
Yeah.
You every time you try to watch TV, it just makes you pissed off. It makes you want to throw up. It makes you want to punch the TV. I haven't turned on my TV in probably, I do watch some football every now and then. And I know there's a lot of controversy with that and whatever, but it was a sport I loved as a kid. That was something I truly loved playing. I had scholarships to go to, I was going to have scholarships to go to play in college. And then I broke my leg my senior year, blah, 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 whiny story. So, but other than that, like when I turn on the TV, because you're going to see all the instant within the first 3 minutes, you're going to see something about racism, something about gender, something about, a gay couple, something about, you're going to see all that programming stuff that the high, just in the first couple of minutes of, and it's just, instead of it just being a normal show, it has an agenda behind it.
Well, not only that, there's patents on these televisions where it can actually put you in a state to be more susceptible for mind control. There's patents on this. You should probably show them on your channel here, how it's literally brainwashing you. There's certain frequencies that can come through your smart devices. This is military equipment. So like, do you not realize smart is stupid? We're just
Yeah, the other
lulling
thing is
ourselves to sleep.
to kind of backdoor what you were talking about with the Smith Act is they had Operation Mockingbird, which was where they
Yeah.
implanted, I believe, 40
CIA.
CIA agents into the news organizations
Right.
to deliver our news. It never says that it had an ending date. It never said that they pulled them out. And I often wonder how somebody like what was the brother of the mayor dude,
Cuomo.
Cuomo, or Cooper, or any of
Yep.
these guys, or the
Maddow.
Maddow, or
Yeah.
I always wonder, like, how the F do you sleep at night? You piece of, you know what? And
Oh, they
well,
love lying to the people. They
I
love
guess
it.
$20 million a year. Like, how does somebody that tells you the news live in a freaking $10 million home? It's a buy off, people. It's a payoff to sell your soul and to lead people down the wrong path.
That's
And when
right.
you and then so you have nothing ever telling us that Operation Mockingbird ever ended. You often wonder how these people can sit here and just lie straight to your face with a straight face and go to bed at night and enjoy their little lives. And it's a payoff. And you know, with that happening, with Obama making it to where they can now give us fake news, propaganda in order to sway our opinion, should tell you everything you need to know. And it should tell you everything you know is a lie. And the sooner that you come to grips with that, the sooner, I don't know, because I don't know what happens.
Right. We're just trying to inform people and make them aware of these scary things. And trust me, there's things that I know that are way scarier than this.
Yeah.
Most wouldn't
Yeah.
believe me if I were to even state it. So that's where we're at. And
We're
I've
definitely going to
actually
talk about that on another
let's
session.
do this
So.
again. Some, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. I think we need to bring the scary things to the forefront. You know, and in the end, I don't know.
I mean, are they
religion,
ready? Are they
yeah,
ready for it?
I don't know.
I wasn't.
I would have to say that you're going to have to figure it out. You're going to have to get ready because it's coming
Yeah.
whether you want it to or not. So, and I, you know, again, I don't know where people are religiously and stuff like that. But I see a lot of things that are written in the Bible that are coming true. And I know that people say, oh, the Bible's man manipulated. The only thing I can say to that is the oldest book on the face of the earth. And I go back to the King James Version because I know, and I also have the translation from the Hebrew and Taramic, whatever version. So there's a lot of things that are coming true. And I believe that there is, you know, it's like, I think that the elites, the whatever you want to call them, they're in a battle, right? This is good versus evil, and they think they're going to outsmart what is coming down the pipeline, and they really truly think they're going to beat it. And I think that the next topic that I'd like to discuss with you is probably AI, because I know that is the, I know that's
CERN, where was the internet created, right? Where your cell phones were first, you know, used by the military. You want to talk about the military industrial complex? I would probably get kicked off for that.
Well, we'll probably get
DARPA.
murked. We'll probably get murked. I mean, that's probably what'll happen next.
Exactly. Getting murked over here. Okay, well, I've got to get going, but it was wonderful.
All right, thanks. Thank you, Riley. I appreciate your time today, and I'll look forward to talking to you again.